everybody. Here's the truth. Most investors are using PropStream like it's Google. They type in a zip code, check a box, and pray. That is not how the real pros find deals. So today I brought in my good friend Burton. He is the guy behind the training at PropStream. This man knows every hidden lever inside the platform, the public ones, the secret ones, all the stuff. And today he is dropping 3 overlooked filters that the top investors are using to find sellers that nobody else sees. So you are going to learn about how to pull deals out of markets most people think are dead. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Closers Club. My friend, good to see you.
Thanks for having me, David. And what an awesome intro, man. You always make me feel warm and welcome coming here. I love being here. Really, I look forward to this. So thank you for having me, man.
You bet. Listen, let me ask you a question. Most investors go into PropStream. I know we were talking about this a little bit before, and they kind of go straight for zip codes and high equity, but you're saying that they're missing the gold, right? Like, what are those overlooked filters that instantly give the savvy investors an edge?
Oh, absolutely. You know, it's actually one of them is I'm going to use air quotes here. I call this the pre-foreclosure records, but I use air quotes only because it's no longer a pre-foreclosure. And the document I'm referring to is called a notice of default release or notice of release or notice of rescission. And so let me actually share with you how that works. We here at PropStream have a category not too many people know about. And so we were talking about Florida, so let's use that market there. Now, this is not a document that may be readily available everywhere, but what I would recommend if you're watching this, just run a quick search in your market, see if you have it. It could be a great lead source. So the lead I'm referring to can be found in our filter menu. It's right over here. Now, and you do want to do the same things you've normally done. So tell us what type of property you're looking for, whether you want it on or off market. So do all of that. But the filter I want to highlight is actually located in our pre-foreclosure and bank-owned section. And in order to identify this filter, you're going to want to hit include. But you're going to want to choose this option right here. This is called our default releases. And a lot of people don't know, but there is a third document when it comes to pre-foreclosures. And so let's go over them. So these are default releases, a.k.a. former pre-foreclosures. But why am I bringing these up to begin with? Well, there's a saying, history has a tendency to repeat itself. Okay. So when you go into these properties, you'll notice that there's a pre-foreclosure detail tab. And in there, you can see essentially the history of that pre-foreclosure. And again, this is a document not too many people know about or aware of, but it's called a notice of rescission, a.k.a. a default release. What that means is that this homeowner was able to reluctantly pay that default and get themselves out of this scenario. But that's essentially a lead, right? Because what it's telling you is that this person essentially went through some financial challenges, and sure, they might have resolved it currently, but again, history has a tendency to repeat itself. So all these addresses are indicating former financial challenge, got rid of it for the time being, but that decision can come back around. And here's something that I like to share because I have a friend who specializes that here in LA County. His reasonings behind it is a lot of these homeowners typically get a payday advance or are borrowing money to solve that default.
Right. They begged, borrowed, stealed, scratched it together, and because they want to save their credit. Nobody wants a foreclosure. So yeah, maybe it's time for us to come in and see if we can help rescue them.
Absolutely. So all this is saying is that there's 138 potentially, distressed homeowners. Just kick the can further down. That can's going to come back around eventually. I mean, hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully they've kicked it far enough. They never have to worry about it. That's what I hope. I'm very hopeful of. But this is a potential lead source. Again, former pre-foreclosures, notice of rescissions. But again, history has a tendency to repeat itself. You never know. Even if 10% of them were to go back into pre-foreclosure, that's 13 leads, right?
13 people we can help.
There you go. So one of the first categories I want to talk about is that it's called notice of rescission. So if you're listening or watching, I recommend that you go into our pre-foreclosure foreclosure filter menu. Click on include and select default releases and see what populates.
Dude, I got to tell you, you started talking about pre-foreclosure. I'm like, man, he always brings the heat. He's not going to talk about pre-foreclosures, is he? That was awesome. You shocked me. That's amazing. I love it.
Yeah. And what's cool about it too is that, I mean, I'm not able to find one at the very moment, but sometimes you'll find ones that have really, really long pre-foreclosure. There you go.
Yeah.
multiple situations. In the 19 years of ownership here, this owner has gone through multiple
This
pre-foreclosures.
guy went right to the edge.
But then went back again, dismiss. So again, is this something that hopefully we never see the light of day again as a homeowner? Maybe, but this also could be just the fire's just been put out now, but there is still some smoke that's simmering. We still see some ashes that could turn back into fire. So that's really what it
his
what
family
it is.
or her family is going to get tired of paying those arrears on their mortgage.
There you have it. So first one I know none of people actually use or even know about.
I didn't know
just
about
to see if they have notices of rescissions being recorded in their market. And if you do, that's a potential lead source for you.
Yeah, love it. Very cool.
Here's another one I like, and that's essentially this one actually gives you. This one's kind of a halfway point, and I say that only because there's still a little bit more extensive research that's going to need to be involved. Hopefully, we'll be able to address that in the near future. But one category that I also want to highlight, not too many people utilize, especially for those in the creative seller space, or you're just looking for someone who might be open to that idea. But it's essentially looking for all the seller carryback transactions. So you can go to PropStream, say, hey, I'm looking for a residential family property, single family property that has a private note on it, meaning they didn't use traditional lenders. They used a private, the homeowner of the property sold them the property on a private note. So in this case, this property is owned by a new homeowner, but we get to see in the transaction history who the individual was that did the seller carryback. And that's essentially do a little bit of research on that individual there, find out if you can gather their contact information, the previous owner's contact information. They might have additional properties that they'd be willing to do creative seller financing. And so this is, again, I would say a halfway point. We're not able to get you to that individual because our data only reflects the current owner. It doesn't give you information on previous. The only information you get on previous ownership is in the transaction history. But in this case, again, I need to find out who this individual is because they like to work in a unique fashion. And that's, they like to sell properties through creative seller financing. So they might have another property that I can reach out to them and see if they'd like to cash flow a unique way.
You are absolutely right, because so many of my properties are all owner financed, just exactly like you've described there. And typically they have more than one. That is for sure.
There you go.
So many packages.
So this was the second one I want to highlight, and that's just simply who's doing seller carrybacks in my neighborhood. And once you find those addresses that are doing seller carryback, then what you want to do is go into the transaction history and then find out who those sellers are. This is a trust, so we can easily Google them, find out their 800 number, get a hold of the LLC, see if they have other properties they'd like to do some creative seller financing with.
Got it. That's amazing. I love that.
Absolutely. And the last and final one, and it's really one I always bring up, but it's very important now than ever before. And that's essentially, I cannot emphasize this enough, guys, numbers of properties owned, right? Very, very, very important. And the reason I say that is it's a two-way street here. These are not just potentially homeowners with multiple properties, and maybe you're going to get more than one of their properties, but these are also investors that have multiple properties. These are individuals you should build relationships with as well. Now, again, there's many ways to use it. So if we're going to use it to find a motivated seller, then find that motivated seller with 5 properties or more, and then just add that motivation on top of it. So maybe it's a delinquent individual who happens to own multiple properties or more. So again, if you're trying to use the number of properties filter in a way to find leads, apply that minimum number or max number, whatever it is that you're looking for, and then add a distress attachment to it. In this case, I'm using tax delinquency. But if you want to use it in a sense of, oh, hey, I want to find who has multiple properties in the neighborhood and I want to be friends with them, I want to follow their shadows, then I would actually do the opposite. Instead of choosing a distress category, why don't you find a happy category? In this case, show me someone who's buying properties in cash and they happen to have 5 or more properties as well. So I can't emphasize this filter enough because this filter can be pivoted in both ways. It can be used as a way to find someone who can potentially provide you with multiple leads, or it could be used to find someone who's already doing what you're trying to do and build that relationship. And you never know, you can follow their shadows and do exactly what they're doing and own multiple properties.
Yeah, I
So.
think that's an amazing way to, it's certainly something to highlight with data, right? Because data is just data. It's just a collection of ones and zeros. It's how we look at that and how we can interpret it and kind of manipulate that to, get us to where we want to go. So super important. I love that, definitely looking at 5 or less. I never actually thought about that. Maybe somebody who's got 3, 2, 3, 4, 5 properties is like, oh my God, it's so 5 properties. They've owned it for 20 years. They might just be done, right? They just want to sell out,
Absolutely.
retire, or maybe even owner finance too. Maybe.
And I've seen many unique ways. I've seen people even use numbers of properties owned with categories like senior owners. Maybe the senior owner doesn't have kids. Maybe they don't have a plan B. Maybe they finally want to consolidate and you happen to be there right on time.
Yeah.
I've seen even used with our pre-probate data, a deceased owner who left multiple properties behind. That's essentially another lead source. So these are the 3 filters, I would say, that are overlooked or just sometimes might even not be known about, like the notice of rescission. So default releases, I encourage you to utilize that. I encourage you to utilize the lead lists, or I'm sorry, the numbers of properties owned. And then the third option was the second option was the seller carryback filter, knowing who's doing that in your market, especially if you're doing creative seller financing or want to work with people that, in my opinion, just a little bit more of an expertise in doing unique things when it comes to real estate. So it doesn't hurt to know these individuals and see what they know.
Nice. Is there any, let me ask you this, we're going to, any of the, the gurus, the coaches, the influencers out there that they're always pushing something or, one category that you're like, that's just really not that great. Like there's just better things. And these are obviously these are far better probably.
Yeah, there's one category I hear all the time that if you just say it by itself makes no sense to me unless you start adding things to it. And it's when people say, just pull a high equity list. And while I agree with that, like that's a very, very valid point, right? Especially for a wholesaler, fix and flipper, you need that equity to perform your business. But you got to imagine, we don't want to just pull any high equity list. You want to pull a high equity list with some sort of, motivated factor behind it, right? Because put yourself in the shoes of a homeowner who just paid your mortgage off for 30 years. You're now a high equity owner. Are you going to want to sell all of a sudden? No. Like you got to make sure you're adding some level of motivation on top of that. So if you hear next time, just pull a high equity list, that's a great start. Just add a little bit more to that high equity, like a failed listing plus high equity, or tax delinquencies plus high equity, or vacant properties and a lot of equity. Don't just pull a high equity list and call it a day. You might be setting yourself up for failure there.
Right. Well, one of the amazing things that, and I just, this, I just love you guys at PropStream. We've used you in our own business for so many years, is that, with the ability to look at data. I love your new user interface too, by the way. I think I told you that last time.
Thank you.
But, let's say you have a limited budget, right? You may not have $10 billion to send out direct mail this month, right? Some of us start out, definitely me, when I started out, I had a budget, but I love that we can, I can go to Chattanooga and I can say, okay, I have enough to send out 1,000 mailers, right? So that's going to be however much that's going to be, right? Let's say $600. Well, I can take this list and I could just keep tweaking it and adding filters until I bring it down to the best 600 people, right? Every dollar I have is a little soldier. It has to go out and earn some money. So I don't want to waste, just resources on bad lists. So I just love some of the stuff that you're talking about here.
Yeah, and again, I think we talked about this in our last episode or two ago. We even are doing things like adding AI, including our PropStream intelligence, and letting you filter properties based on the photo conditions on the MLS and the foreclosure factor. So we're constantly evolving that product. And then to your point, we want to make sure it's easily obtainable and you guys are able to do all the amazing stuff. And so we did have a pricing update. We now have annual plans. So something we've always had, and we just never made it forward facing. So if you want to check out our annual plans and save yourself 2 months in the long run, I recommend it, especially if you've been using it for a while. Let us at least save you a few bucks here and there. We also have our monthly plan. So if you're not yet sure if you want to commit to a whole year, we have our monthly plans. But we also created some new packaging for you. So those that are familiar with PropStream are already familiar with our essential plan. The only difference is you now have more leads. We're giving you 25,000 instead of 10,000 a month now. So that's a huge update. The Pro plan, though, I may be biased here because I work for PropStream. I've been working for them for like more than 12 years now. But I would say this is probably the best option for everyone that's listening and watching. It's our Pro plan, because the idea here is, although it's geared for an individual, it does include some team member access. So if you have a VA or an intern, a relative that wants to help you out with pulling leads, comping properties, you don't have to worry with that. Also, free skip tracing. I can't emphasize that.
Oh my God.
You're going to get free skip tracing with this, and your monthly limit is 50,000. So do the math there. $200, 50,000 leads, free skip
tracing. I remember
tracing.
when it was like 19 cents a skip trace.
There you have it. And so there's still a cost for skip tracing on the essentials, but if you're going to be needing those phone numbers and those emails to reach out to homeowners, guys, I can't emphasize enough, the Pro plan's probably going to save you, especially with that access, the free skip tracing. And then if you are at that point where, okay, I need a call center now, our team is growing way too large. We do have an elite plan for you that gives you a lot of team members, substantial records, and of course, the free skip tracing with that. So just wanted to highlight that. We have some new pricing packages, some new plans, some new features, and some new benefits for everyone watching.
That is an absolute steal. Again, when we were doing this at a very high level before we opened, we were running easy REI closings, man, 70,000 records a week. Like, it was crazy.
What?
Oh,
holy moly.
Dude, we were
can only imagine what the cost was.
We were in 28 or 29 markets across the country, but we were, it was back when you could text and there were no restrictions on it. We were just,
the ringless voicemail era, right?
Yes. So guys, this is so valuable, and this is good data. Like, I know we don't have a ton of time. I probably didn't tell you, but let's talk about data, right? Because there's good data and then there is crap. And I tell you, I let somebody one time, like, oh, if you'll trade your Dispo course, I'll give you like, I don't know, 20,000 free skip traces. And dude, it was like herpes for my CRM. Like, it just locked up because it was so bad. There was so much bad data. It locked up my dialer. It was terrible.
Oh man, that's funny. But thank you so much, David, for having me on today's episode. I hope those that are listening, watching got to learn, or maybe try out some of these new filters that we just showed you, and let us know what your experience is.
I know we used to have a little free trial. Is that still active with the new plans?
Yes, absolutely.
Nice.
And make sure you guys click on that. There's also some discounts and some affiliate bonuses that you'll get using David's link. So make sure to take advantage of that, guys.
Awesome. Guys, this is amazing. I say it every single time. You cannot run your business without data. You just can't do it. You need to be able to look at properties. You need to make sure we're offering sellers the right price, right? It does no good to just put something under contract and then not be able to sell it. How do we know what the right price is? Because we can come in here and we can look and see what other buyers are paying for houses in a very similar condition. So cannot run your business without PropStream. Do not try to get on Facebook and coerce some realtor into giving you one, which is terrible, is trying to give you their access. They're not going to do it. Two, getting them or depending on somebody else to run your comps. My God, it's $200 a month and you can be in control of your own destiny. This is the deal. PropStream is it. We did over 1,000 properties with PropStream. So big proponent of everything that you guys are doing, Burton.
Thank you so much, David. I'm happy that we were there with your journey for those 1,000 homeowners that were helped. So you've been doing an amazing job, man. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you so much for coming in. And I think we're going to do it again next month. And we're going to talk about more cool things here on the Closers Club.
Yeah, we got some stuff for you guys to talk about. So thanks for having me, man.
All right, you bet.